For the first time in this 2023 college football season, the Duke Blue Devils suffer a loss. They lose to Notre Dame. Quarterback Riley Leonard is injured. We talk about all of that and more on today's show.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. To Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, and it's so great to have you here with us on this Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. On today's show, we'll talk about the Duke football game against Notre Dame. Unfortunately, the Blue Devils suffered their first loss of the season. Quarterback Riley Leonard is injured, and we'll discuss all of that with our good pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. As we look at our show here in the day and coming weeks, we're getting closer to basketball season. A lot more exciting things coming up on the horizon there in Durham. So make sure you follow us, subscribe to this YouTube channel, watch the show daily, leave us a 5-star rating and review, as your support means so much to me here at Locked On Blue Devils. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. So without further ado, let me bring on my good pal Josh Cox from the aforementioned Section 17 podcast. Josh, the time is greatly appreciated, and here we are. Unfortunately, Duke had an opportunity to be 5-0 on Saturday, but it was just not meant to be. Duke suffers their first loss of the season, 21-14, against the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Duke, second half especially, Duke played really good football, was the better team, I felt like, in the second half, and just unfortunately got themselves in a 10-0 hole in the first half. And, but I mean, first of all, JJ, shout out to you for making the hype video. First, 15 seconds of the hype video. I'm like, I recognize that voice. And, sure enough, got the cameo by JJ Jackson there. But I mean, yeah, what a weekend. I know we're going to talk a little bit about it, but I mean, from top to bottom, beginning Saturday morning at, 6 a.m., 4:30 a.m., when the line started for College Game Day, all the way to that final whistle, It was aside from the outcome of the game, it was just an incredible experience.
And I think we do deserve to talk a little bit about the atmosphere and the experience and all those things that go into it, because, man, the college football world was really impressed with what they saw in Durham, but we'll save that a little bit later. The most important thing, obviously, the result of this game, Duke football suffering their first loss of the season. As you said, down early, fought back in the second half, get a big go-ahead touchdown as Riley Leonard throws one off to Jordan Moore to give Duke the lead. And then from there, it's just a tough end to that football game. A 4th and 18 to kind of put it away, and we're going to be talking about that one for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's just unfortunate play there. Spoke to a couple of players about it, even after the game, off the record. And just, at the end of the day, you've got two choices there on that 4th down. You can either bring pressure and you risk getting beat with a quick slant, and they're gone, or you play what Duke did and you play back a little bit. And at the end of the day, all it was the secondary just delayed a little bit and broke a little bit too late. Sam Hartman was able to pick up the first down barely. And so the thing that I would have, it would have been comical, especially the way the slide rule is if you'd have started that slide, just like a yard too early, it would have been incredible. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, no excuses, none at all. But yeah, very unfortunate. That the stadium went from anticipating another field storm to deflated, like in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and then it just continues, right? Because 4th and 18 happens. Notre Dame still has to make some things happen. They're still down by a point. But again, for those that aren't aware, clock ticking down, final 2 minutes of the football game type scenario with Notre Dame trying to put together a drive to win it. And Sam Hartman scrambles on a 4th and 18, picks up the first down. And then after that, Notre Dame able to get a rushing touchdown to go up 21-14. In a lot of ways at that time, Josh, It was like you're fine with the touchdown, right? Because in some ways, if Notre Dame goes down, then it'd be a basketball scenario. You're dribbling out the clock to 2 seconds left, and then let's kick a 20-yard field goal and win this thing. So in some ways, at least there was a chance for Duke to do something, given the fact that Notre Dame was able to score that touchdown.
I think it's actually a good point to debate. I personally believe Estime did the right thing in scoring the touchdown. And here's why. Notre Dame's field goal kicker, while he's good, had already missed a field goal earlier in the game. And Duke in that Clemson game got their hands on 2 different field goals. And so even if you were a 25, 30-yard field goal, there's still no guarantee there. And so I personally, am a fan of what Estime did. I do, from what I've heard, even Marcus Freeman wishes he would have gone down and they'd have run the clock out type thing and kicked the field goal. But hey, at the end of the day, what happened. Unfortunately for Duke, on that very last drive is where, I know we're going to get to it, but where, Riley Leonard looking to make a play happen, just got eaten up by that defense and injured. But, that's part of football, right? Those choices that coaches make, and then those freak injuries that happen sometimes.
Well, we do want to get to it. We want to talk about that final sequence for the Blue Devils. Down by a touchdown, they've got to put together a drive to win it. And unfortunately, a tough end for Riley Leonard to this football game. We'll talk about that after our first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the #1 place, the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. How frustrating is that sometimes to be putting together those online orders? You see the total there on the screen. You go to the payment process, and all of a sudden, the total goes all the way up. That's not the case with Game Time. No hidden fees there for you, as you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 apps. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They've got deals on tickets right up to the start of the event or even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. With zone deals, you pick the section of Game Time, and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, alongside Josh Cox, I'm JJ Jackson. So we've kind of set it up for folks here. If you haven't seen the end of the game, Estime scores a touchdown. Notre Dame's able to go for 2 and get the 2-point conversion to go up by a score of 21-14. About a minute or so left to play in the football game. Duke got a timeout to work with. They've got the advantage of being in the last 2 minutes where the clock is going to stop on first downs. You can kind of make things happen playing towards the boundaries and whatnot. But ultimately, Josh, tell everybody what happened.
Riley Leonard looked to, really wasn't a deep drop, but that Notre Dame pass rush, just got through and looked like he was hit 2 different ways. And I was on the field on the sideline when it happened, and I didn't get to see a vivid view of it in person, but did get to see the replay of it, and looked extremely nasty. Looked like a potential ACL. Looked like if it was an ankle that it was for sure broken, like whatever. And so Riley goes down. And then I think, obviously if you followed it, you know what happened after that. They took him to the tent. But I do think it's pretty notable of Sam Hartman after the game. I was, once again, not watching ABC. They said he even cut an interview short to make sure he got over there to see Riley. And also we were standing right near there. He also was asking cameras to back away. So he wasn't even doing it for the camera. that was just a class act, man. It was really neat to see two quarterbacks who, obviously this is their second year battling back and forth. Last year was Sam Hartman at Wake Forest, but it was really neat to see Sam Hartman wait for him. I thought another notable thing was Jacob Monk. I don't know if it was Jacob's man that ended up hitting Riley. I'm not sure if that's what it was, but Jacob's a team captain, and he is a part of the offensive line. And Jacob stayed at that tent and waited on his quarterback and escorted him to the locker room. So updates from that, I know you've seen it. It hit Twitter on Monday.
Well, let's get to the updates in just a second.
All right. Sorry, getting ahead of you.
I don't want to go there just yet because because the world is talking about this as it's happening, right? All of a sudden, Duke is 4-0, Notre Dame, massive game. Here we are, a chance to, go to a 5-0 record. We see the 4th and 18 scramble, and now all of a sudden, Duke lost the football game. And at the moment, there is fear that Duke has lost the quarterback for the entire season. I mean, you mentioned the sights of Sam Hartman there and Jacob Monk, but Josh, just being there in the venue, around the team, around the coaching staff, and then heck, even walking out to the parking lot and being amongst Duke football fans. Tell us a little bit more about what that environment was like. And, we'll get to the update, but in those moments after the game, when there is so much optimism for the season, how down were people?
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, immediately the first thing that I looked for was Riley's family and friends. Knew where they were sitting, and you feel for them. Sometimes we become desensitized to the human element and aspect of these athletes, and so that's the first thing I did was like, man, I feel so terrible for his mom and his dad and the rest of his family and friends. First thing. Second thing, just in my line of sight from where I was I saw Henry Beelan. And Henry Beelan, it was almost as if he realized, like, okay, like all those reps, all that stuff we've done in the spring, all that stuff we did in the summer, okay. And so that's the first thing. And then obviously everyone was concerned for Riley. Everyone, as we're walking out, it's not doomsday. I believe Duke fans have enough faith in this coaching staff and the rest of this team to know that while we would not probably be at our best without Riley Leonard, that this team is still going to show up. So I don't think there's any like doomsday about the team. I think it's more so for Riley the person.
Yeah.
We spent that entire college game day talking about the "You Suck" bracelet, showing his basketball clips again from high school. This was a lot about Riley Leonard. And to see this game be the one where he does get hurt, it's just unfortunate for him personally. And that's kind of the vibe you got. It was like, I don't think people were concerned about the team as much as it's like, man, that kid, he has obviously had a chance to, and still does, has a chance to even go pro a year early out after this season if he chooses to. Got a bright future ahead of him, even no matter what he chooses at the end of this season. And you hate to see a guy like that have any sort of injury hiccup. So that was the overall vibe, I believe, was just concern for the person, because I do believe Duke fans and really any fan that gets around Riley Leonard connects with him on a personal level. And so people were concerned about him.
So let's get to kind of the energy around campus for the entire weekend, like we had talked about a little bit earlier. And I do want to talk about what's next for the Duke football team. They get set for a bye week, and then we'll see Henry Beelan kind of get his turn as Duke's quarterback. But before we do that, we'll let the weekend kind of play out a little bit more. Pete Thamel from ESPN puts together some kind of major developments for the entire world to see in regards to Riley Leonard, where it doesn't seem as severe of an injury, which is great. Tell us a little bit more about those injury details and kind of what timelines you're hearing, Josh.
Yeah, so he released that through sources. I'll just say this: the sources were not Duke, by the way. Do know that. So wasn't necessarily expected to see those sources out there on social media. But what we have verified through the Duke program, so this is 100% from them, is that it is not nearly as bad as what it looked and what was initially thought. Number one. Number two, there's no timetable for his return with with the bye week, as you mentioned, with the time that he'll have, I mean, logic says we're going to see Henry Beelan because high ankle sprain, as what they're calling it, is usually 3 to 4 weeks. But you never know. You have no, you never want to speculate. And honestly, Duke's not going to show their hand there, I don't believe, until they
Yeah.
have to. And so, we will see. I know Henry's ready. But at the end of the day, just best case scenario, I believe, for Riley. And then obviously Duke is going to take good care of Riley Leonard, the person. They're not going to, I don't believe they're going to play him until he's legitimately ready to play. And so that's the current update. It's week to week. I know Coach Elko enough to know he's not going to show his hand unless he has to. He doesn't want teams to be able to game plan either way, and he's concerned and wants Riley to have a full recovery. So that's where we're currently sitting. Anything else that you hear is unverified. I can promise you that.
Well, let's go ahead and we'll take our final break of the program. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the weeks to come for Duke football and kind of celebrate the weekend that was College Game Day, the football version in Durham for the first time ever. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Bird Dogs, one of my absolute favorite pieces of clothing that I own, because Bird Dogs make you look good. They make me look good, and they can do the same for you, as their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton, as Bird Dogs has fixed this issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice your movement. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code lockedoncollege at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free water bottle at checkout. You don't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. I'm JJ Jackson. All right, tell us a little bit about the Section 17 podcast, Josh. Promote your work.
Yeah, for sure. Weekly football podcast. In fact, this past week, this week, with this past Monday, we did a live recording. It's our first ever. That was interesting, but captured as good of audio as we possibly could. Even got the video out there. But we cover Duke football. Duke FB Talk is where you can find us on socials. Obviously, podcasts, anywhere you find podcasts, Section 17 podcast, YouTube, DukeFootballTalk.com. And then, as JJ would say, 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated, both here on Locked On Blue Devils and anywhere you consume our podcast. We would greatly appreciate it. So, yeah, that's what we do. Try to give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at Duke football.
Go check it all out. It's good stuff there, the Section 17 podcast. So we're talking about Duke and the weekend that was. I mean, College Game Day is there. Pat McAfee and all of his entourage with the Pat McAfee show being there. Great clips and interviews with Elko and Leonard on Friday. And Ken Jeong is the celebrity guest picker. I mean, just the entire energy of the weekend leading up to the football game. Because folks saw the football game. We could see it on television, just how raucous that atmosphere was. But leading up to it and whatnot, what was it like to be around Durham, Josh?
Yeah, there was a buzz. I had to go on campus Friday afternoon to pick up something. And while there weren't thousands of people on campus per se, there was just a buzz. Everyone that was walking around, because I was near the football stadium, everyone walking around Cameron, around the around the football stadium. There was a buzz about the game. There were people talking. Everybody had something to say about it. Then Saturday morning, first of all, Duke basketball has hosted game day. I don't even know how many times. We can't count anymore, right? How many times they've been there. And honestly, over the years, as you've seen with football, even like in Alabama, now if College Game Day comes to Tuscaloosa, people go to it, but it's not like a crazy attendance anymore.
Right.
Duke basketball's kind of gotten the same way with College Game Day. It's not nearly as full. It's not nearly as loud, just because it is what it is. So I was a little concerned. I say that because I was a little bit concerned that the crowd was not going to turn out Saturday, and it was going to be a little bit of a disappointment. And boy, was I wrong. The lines started, I believe, at 4:30 or earlier. By the 6 o'clock opening, I mean, that pit was full. We arrived at College Game Day around 7:30 ish, and the pit was completely full. Like, we weren't not getting in there. Luckily, we had a little bit of hookups and we were able to get backstage a little bit, which was fun. But yeah, so number one, the people showed up. It was awesome. Number two, signs were great. Some really clever signs did not disappoint on there. And then thirdly, McAfee, Herb Street, Corso, Ken Jung, the whole crew, they were as advertised. I mean, it was really cool. The fans loved them. They interacted so well with the fans as well. So, I mean, I can't say enough about that. The Duke basketball team was out there supporting as well, both at the game, and they swung through College Game Day as well in the morning. And so the atmosphere was buzzing, man. Our tailgate probably had close to 100 people come through, hanging out at the tailgate. A lot of people stayed through to the game. Some people obviously left and came back. But this was a real football environment, and anybody who says Duke can't do that, Duke showed that they can do that this past weekend. That was a real football environment. So sustaining that is obviously the challenge for Duke moving forward. But I thought it was really impressive. I thought Duke did really well. I love the fact that it was at the chapel, and I love the fact that it was Ken Jung and not anyone from the basketball side as the guest speaker. So it was all around well done.
Amazing to watch it kind of all play out throughout the day, right? And leading up to kickoff of the noon games. But then the show ends, it's noon, and kickoff is not until 7:30, Josh. I mean, was the buzz consistent for these next 7 hours leading up to kickoff? I mean, people, that's not on television, what takes place after the show goes off the air until you're getting ready for, I mean, just the tailgating atmosphere as a whole. Was that impressive?
Yeah, I will say, I mean, first of all, the main area near Krzyzewskiville, where they have the line up of tents and everything, I mean, that was jam-packed all day long. The lot where we tailgate, the B lots, those lots were probably, I'd say conservatively double the amount of people in those lots throughout the day that typically are there on a typical home game. And the energy was there. I mean, the Blue Devil Walk, if you've seen videos or photos from the Blue Devil Walk, I have never seen that many people at a Blue Devil Walk ever. Not even close. The former player tailgate tent was jam-packed and overflowing.
Everybody wanted to come back.
Yeah, man, and it was homecoming. It was homecoming week. It was really the perfect storm for Duke, and obviously just missing the win in the game. But if you want to take the day as a whole, the weekend as a whole, that was a big W for Duke. A big W. There's no question. It would have just been nice to get the W in the game.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That would have been the best part. All right, so as we get out of here today, again, a bye week here for Duke, and then they've got NC State coming out of the bye. If it is Leonard, if it is Henry Beelan who takes over as Duke's quarterback, let's kind of remind folks briefly what to expect. I mean, this is a big opportunity for Beelan to step into.
Yeah, I mean, just being very honest, before we get to Henry Beelan, what to expect is your boy Jordan Waters, Mr. 8 touchdowns in 5 games. The only man really on that side of the football other than Riley Leonard that could really take on this Notre Dame defense and move the pile forward. My guy was an absolute monster in the second half. And so shout out to him. So number one, as a result of this, even if Riley is the quarterback for some miraculous way, we're going to see a heavy dose of that Duke running back room, number one. Number two, what do we have in Henry Beelan? You have a kid who came into Duke 2 years ago, very raw. Kid from the Bronx. If you know much about college football recruiting, most of your quarterbacks and your skill players like that, they really do gravitate from the South. They have a lot more time with the weather to really get work in, and it just is the way it is. It just is the way it is. And so here comes Henry, a kid from the Bronx, from an incredible family, but shows up and his talent is like, man, he has a cannon, but we're working on the other stuff.
Yeah.
And we noticed it in spring practice of this year. One of our big takeaways, Henry Beelan is an incredibly gifted quarterback, a much improved quarterback from what we saw his redshirt year. And he's ready. We've seen him already this year, and I believe it was the Lafayette game where he was 8 for 8 and throwing the football. Henry can run. He's a big kid as well. He's probably not as fast as Riley Leonard, but he probably packs a little bit more muscle than Riley potentially. I believe Duke fans are going to see much of the same. I don't know that Kevin Johns is going to have to adjust that offensive scheme incredibly because of Henry. I believe Henry and Riley are similar builds. They're similar quarterbacks. Like I said, we might see the run a tad bit more, but hey, that's not a bad thing, right? I mean, we can run the football. If we can run the football, let's continue doing so. And so I've got full faith in that. And then obviously true freshman Grayson Loftus, who got some playing time in the UConn game as well, will be the backup if Henry should be the starter. Yeah. And once again, I mean, he's already got game reps as a true freshman. And, you know, Duke recruits these kids not to sit on the bench. Yeah. They recruit these kids to play football. So here's their opportunity. Let's do it, you know?
Absolutely. Well, Josh, the time is always greatly appreciated. Good to see you. Enjoy the bye week, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
JJ, have a great week, man. We'll see you.
All right, that's Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast joining us here on today's show. That's going to do it for our show here today. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, following us on Twitter or podcast platforms. Your support means so much. Without further ado, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.